Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
It just feels as though the benchmark timeline for any sort of return to normalcy keeps getting pushed back further and further.
How long it will take to vaccinate people will really depend upon the efficiency with which you get doses into people's arms. So they'll be available in July. It may take an additional couple of months, actually, maybe towards the end of the summer, to get everybody vaccinated.
Because the goalpost moves all the time. And Anderson Cooper was right. It's the frustration of getting back to a normal way of life. It's funny, my little brother, he's 21, he texted me yesterday. He's like, hey, Chad, when do you think we're going to get back to normal? I said, when are you going to get back to normal? You're in California. I said, 2050. When are we here in Arizona going to get back to normal? We're almost there. The reality is we need a 60% threshold of either people who've been infected or vaccines. We're at like 50, I think 6.2%, according to Fund Stats. They go and look at like who's close, who's far away. We're almost there. Part of it is because we kind of didn't really shut down like a lot of other places. Florida's getting there, Texas. And the other part of it is we're using our shots, the ones we have. We're not trying to make it equitable. Well, Chad, that's horrible. No, it's not horrible. It's reality. Do we shoot for herd immunity no matter how we get there but make it the quickest way? Or is it about making sure that everybody gets it in an equitable fashion, even if it takes longer and costs more? No, to me, it's about, we go back to this. One of my sayings I love, would you rather be right? Would you rather be rich? I'd rather be rich. Along the way, you're going to be right. But in this case, let's be rich. Let's be rich with herd immunity. Now, there's a new study that came out, peer-to-peer reviewed. And they're saying you don't have to store Pfizer in super deep freezers. And you also may have to tell people, look, 85% efficiency after 15 to 28 days, even without a second shot. You could potentially delay your second shot by up to 12 weeks, meaning more shots in arms, less worried about who's getting a second shot because they've got the first shot, and over a period of time, as it ramps up, they're going to get far more than they thought they were going to. Plus, if it can be stored in a normal way, which they're saying, and this is peer-to-peer reviewed, it's out of UK, it's out of Israel, and it's published in the Lancet Medical Journal. They recommend a second dose, they're saying, but 85%, I think most people will take that. And let's get to getting, so we can get to getting back to life. That's what people want to hear. Is there a delay because of the weather? Yes, that's nature. We talk about all the time, nature will mess you up. But so many people are concerned about, well, we got to do this, and we only have this. Get it into people's arms. I don't care. Like some states, like us, like you're walking by, like we got extra doses. Places like California and several of these other states, mostly blue, worried about equity. Well, we're going to have to throw this away because you're not the right age. You're not they're just coming up with all kinds of. Get it into people's arms.
In these areas that are affected by weather, our hearts go out to the pain and suffering that they're experiencing. I'm not so concerned about that, though, in the sense that the biggest challenge we had up into the cold weather was not enough vaccine to begin with. The challenge we have right now is that there's about 22 million Americans who have received their first dose, waiting for their second dose, and there's no second doses as such, except for the new production of vaccine that's coming out, which is about 2 million doses a day. So if we didn't vaccinate anybody with new first doses over the course of the next 10 to 14 days, all we could do is second doses. That's the challenge we have right now.
Maybe you don't. If you've gotten Pfizer, maybe you don't. See, why I say Johnson & Johnson, it was the game changer, and Pfizer could be too. If it's peer-to-peer reviewed, if this is as real as they say it is, well, there's no reason for us to. Johnson & Johnson is 66 to 70% effective with one dose, and you could store it anywhere. If you do the same thing with Pfizer and you can get 85% effective, let's open the floodgates and let's get this thing out. It's time. It is time. It's time to start living. It's time to start getting back. It's time for us to start moving forward. Stop moving the damn goalpost. Period. Case closed. End of story. Get it into people's arms who want it, and let everybody else who doesn't want it or is curious to see what the results are after 6 months, they know what the score is. They'll get on with their lives. And if we can mitigate it to where it's almost it's negligible, we're living good, kids. We're living goods. Even the people who didn't get it should feel pretty good that they're probably not going to get it because we have eliminated. Let's get it in people's arms and let's get moving. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us. Text the program. Love hearing from all of you. As we all know, Ted Cruz, he went to Cabo, which became a story. Chad, he's a jerk. He's an idiot. He's horrible. Ted's one of those people, and I'm going to say this, and it's probably going to sound mean, but I really care. I think we all know this. He looks swarmy. He does. That's why the beard actually softened him. He looks kind of swarmy. He has a kind of smug attitude. There's some people you look at, like every time I see Adam Dip Shift, which we call him here, every time I see him, I think, yeah, you know what, a weasel. You're the guy that in every 80s movie was the snitch or the assistant vice principal who was trying to ruin everybody's day. That's who you are. And sure enough, in real life, that's kind of who he is. But Ted kind of comes off in a lot of ways. He's very smarmy, partly because he knows usually he's the smartest guy in the room, and he's fine with telling everybody that. And so he decided, I'm going to go down to Cancun and blah, 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 blah. You know, it's Ted Cruz. He's tone deaf. He was tone deaf. And of course, you know, you got to blame it on somebody.
What was I thinking? I was trying to take care of my family. I was trying to take care of my kids, and you know, it has been. It's unfortunate the firestorm that came from it. It was not my intention.
No, it probably wasn't your intention. It probably wasn't. But the reality was you made it something that it shouldn't have been. And then it became bigger. Because that's what you do, Ted. You jack the pooch. You didn't read the room. Now, I said yesterday, I don't care where he goes. Even if I'm in Texas. He ain't fixing anything. And he's not. Well, he should be there for the optics. I get optics. What matters is solutions. And the solution's been there for 10, 11 years. So I think it was 11 years ago, 10, 11 years ago, I lived in Texas, and there was during the freak winter storm that was kind of like this, but shorter. It wasn't as deep, but that's when they hosted the Super Bowl, and it was a nightmare. That's why Dallas has got the Super Bowl back again, because that entire week, the week before, beautiful. The week after, gorgeous. The week of, nightmare. Frozen, snowing. They were warned. Hey, all you companies out here, you guys need to fix these problems. You need to do some of these things. But much like PG&E out in California with the wildfires, they ignored them. Even though they said, you should do this. They ignored them, even though they said, this is going to cost you massive problems. They ignored it, even though they knew a solution, while, costly, would probably not be as costly and make sure something like this didn't happen again. Nature will always mess you up. At the end of the day, if nature wants to roll in and drop it down to 20 below zero, I don't care who you are. You're going to have problems. But the optics with Ted was bad.
As I said, really from the moment I sat on the plane, I began really second-guessing that decision and saying, look, I know why we're doing this, but I've also got responsibilities. And it had been my intention to be able to work remotely, to be on the phone, to be on internet, to be on Zoom, to be engaged. But I needed to be here. And that's why I came back. And then as it became a bigger and bigger firestorm, it became all the more compelling that I needed to come back.
Yeah, but also because you jacked the pooch. And then you lied, and then you kind of told the truth, and you lied again. And then the people come out and attack you, and rightly so, because you hammered many of the people in places like California for the way they handled the wildfires. And, of course, they all turn around. It's just always about, no matter what they could have done, it was climate change. But you were hypocritical because you bounced and you left, and now people are calling for you to resign. And I think that's a little ridiculous. But you, once again, didn't read the room, and that's part of your problem. You don't read the room in a lot of senses. You look around, I don't read the room. I don't get it. I don't get it. What are you talking about? What are you? Silly. Then you got a text message that supposedly you weren't really going there for a day. Somebody at the ticket counter said, no, he's coming back Sunday. Then there's a text message about his wife's like, let's go down to this place in Cancun. We've been before. They've got great security, and we can stay there till Sunday, and it's warmer. I don't care what you do, but you should read the room. You should absolutely learn how to read. Somebody should teach you how to read the room. Somebody should look around and say, all right, Ted, what do you see going on here? Right? We're at the National Organization of Women. Let's read the room here. Okay. What? No. Got to do better for the optics, because you live in a world where the optics, unfortunately, matter far more than the actual solution to a problem, the problem itself, in the position that you're in. We'll have more on this. Swing miss. Plus, JP, I'm so pumped yesterday. I'm amazed at how many people didn't quite get it. I don't really know. It's like you're not getting it. You're missing the point on how cool and big this was. Well, we've put them there since the 50s, but this is one that's coming back. We put them there. We don't bring them home. This one's coming back. This rover, Perseverance, is coming back with stuff. Now, it's not coming back tomorrow, but we've got drones, like little helicopters. This is going to be so cool. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. All right, home title lock. Protect your home. It is simple. It is easy. People steal titles all the time. Cyber criminals, they want the low-hanging fruit. This is becoming the low-hanging fruit. This is it's taking over things, right? Cyber criminals hack into a hospital, take over the entire computer network, say give us $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 in Bitcoin or whatever, and we'll give you back all your stuff. Other cyber criminals are doing this now, and it is simple, easier to do than a car. Going online, finding out your stuff, your address, your name, it's all public record. Then they forge your signature, which isn't hard to do, and have a fake notary. Next thing you know, they have the title to your house, and then it's you versus them if you ever have a chance to get against them. Mostly it's you trying to keep the loan companies off your back and save your home. Home Title Lock will alert you to anything that happens to your title, even if they're just going in to change a sentence or to add a capital letter. They'll let you know. Right now, none of that stuff happens. And along with that, if you should happen to have your title stolen, Home Title Lock's going to walk you through all the steps and $250,000 in protection for court fees. Don't be foolish. Get Home Title Lock today. Protect your home with Home Title Lock. Go to HometitleLock.com. Register your address. Totally free. Just check it out. See if you've been a victim. Use code radio for 30 days free protection. HometitleLock.com. Code radio. HometitleLock.com. Code radio. Chad Benson Show.
Warning, no snowflake zone. Uninformed opinions are in danger of melting. The Chad Benson Show.
Don't confuse the fact at this point that the weather is going to slow down production. That is still happening. It's just when it gets into people's arms, which will be slightly delayed. My big concern right now is the fact that it's the time in which these doses will arrive. I think July is a very realistic goal. I commend the administration for what they're doing to get as much vaccine here as soon as possible.
Michael Osterholm, he is one of the advisors on Biden's team. So July now. I think we've been pretty fair here. I said by May, June, most people have access to stuff. And by July, we should be reopening across most of the country. Some people can't wait. I get that. Some people are desperate. I get that. Some people will go to any length to get this. Oh, yeah.
2 women were about to get their vaccine here at the Orange County Convention Center when workers here noticed that something didn't line up.
We realized a couple of young ladies came dressed up as grannies. The bonnet, the gloves, the glasses, the whole thing.
It may not have been their disguises that got them caught. The Orange County Sheriff's Office tells WESH 2 the 2 women's birth dates did not match those they used to register for the appointments. One was 44 years old, the other 34.
Yeah. They came dressed as grannies. Do you understand? They're desperate, apparently, to get themselves the shot. You're that desperate. And it wasn't even good. It was one of the kind of granny things that you go to the spirit store and you get, and you're like, you're not even trying. Like, outside of, I'm waiting for it to be a video where somebody throws them a basketball and they get up and then jump and dunk. It was so bad.
Department of Health Officer Dr. Raul Pino says it seems they had already been through the site for dose number 1.
They had a valid CDC card with vaccination. So part of the findings that we have to do is, were they really vaccinated by us? When? Who vaccinated?
Dr. Pino says they're looking into whether there's some sort of loophole in their process or if the women had help on the inside to get the first dose.
As we are engaged in this process and try to move people quickly, some people could squeeze in.
Some people, they couldn't squeeze it. Forget about it. So let's just say I'm there and I've got the shot and I look over and they've tried it and they're there in the outfits. I'd have probably given it to them. A for effort. I mean, A for effort, D for execution. But I'm going to give you a shot because you tried. This is why I'm not allowed to give out the shots. You made the effort. We're going to give it to you. That's so funny. Oh, goodness. We landed on Mars, and as people come down on, to show you the insanity of the left, as people come down on Ted Cruz, the latest comparison. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the sands of past life.
Nerds! It was awesome. I was very nerdy yesterday. I geeked out. It was great. It was. We landed. Perseverance is there. And you know what they say, kids? Just beginning.
This is not an end, but a beginning. Now the amazing science starts, and I'm so looking forward to the science that's come there. Every yard on the surface of Mars is a yard of Mars sample return.
Thomas Zurbuchen. Every yard is a time for us. Very beginning. Yes, totally, for sure. I'm excited about that. He's like, I'm not quite, what kind of accent is that? Feels like it's all over the place. You're Swiss, we got a little German in there. I feel it's a little Scandinavian. Very exciting, though. They landed. It's awesome. They got all the little cool gadgets on there. They got a drone that will be controlled from down here. It's a little helicopter, but it's a drone, essentially. And they're going to go around. They're going to pick up all kinds of material. They're going to look at all the soil samples, and then they're going to bring it back down here. That's not going to happen for 10 years. Right? So that's not happening for 10 years. But still, this is great.
About an hour after landing, I got a phone call from the President of the United States, and his first words were, "Congratulations, man." And I knew it was him.
And then he asked, "How's Neil Armstrong?" It's not very nice, Chad. Producer Phil, you're a nerd, and we know this because I watched your Facebook page yesterday, and that's what we love about you. How pumped were you?
I was really, really excited. I didn't think I was going to be that excited, but once I sat down and started watching it, I'm like, this is really, really cool.
Now, where did you watch it at? Because I was watching the news. I had a bunch of other stuff to do. Did you actually watch the whole thing kind of come down, or what you could see of it?
Yeah, I started watching right as when I got home about 3:15, and just turned on the NASA channel.
The NASA channel. Let me tell you guys something about Phil. Trains, loves them. Air travel and planes, loves them. Space, loves them. That's what we love about Phil. Nature will mess you up, but nature can also be fun. And now we've got outer space nature. And it was great to watch. It is. It was amazing. And this is a precursor of, okay, we can get there. Can we get there with humans now? Can we bring them back? This is the first time, why this is important. This is the first time we're going to try to bring something back. Normally we're like, all right, good luck. And then we're never going to see you again, right? You know, this is a one-way trip. And the little machine's like, I know. And then off it goes. Now it's like, we'll see you in 10 years. Go get some stuff. So it flew out there. It's going to collect stuff. They're going to do all kinds of things. And this round is going to come back. That's the goal. It traveled 50,000 miles an hour. Then it slowed down, and as it went into the atmosphere of Mars, it did slow down to 12,000 miles an hour, and then it had 7 minutes where it had to slow down with it had a parachute, right, Phil? A big parachute?
Yeah, it did have a parachute.
Oh, thing. And then boom, stopped. So think about that, though, for a second. So I want you guys to understand something. When I talk about how amazing this is, and I don't think people realize, for all the talk about Ted Cruz, everybody yesterday, people were arguing, he's a leader. He's not a leader. He's a person that does a job. His job is to go in and do things like preserve the Constitution, make sure that our laws are out there and that they set those laws, and to do the things in government to allow the other people who are visionary and leaders to do something. Somebody had a thought and a belief. Not only can we get there, I'm going to show you when we're going to get there. I'm going to show you how we're going to get there. And when we get there, we're going to land it at the exact time. Almost 300 quadrillion gazillion miles away. That's that right there. To me, these are people who are leading into something else. They're leading into the future. For all intents and purposes, Ted Cruz is a little bit about the present and a lot of it about preserving and protecting the past. And that's a lot of what politicians are. We put way too much hope into politics. I look at stuff like this, far more interesting, far more relevant in the future of where we're going. People have big ideas, and those big ideas may not even be here on Earth. And for a lot of those people, they're going to pull off some of those big ideas, which is amazing. Guess what? They're never going to be around to see it. That's how far of a thought process they have. Speaking of Ted Cruz, as we all know, he's easy to hate. That's the other thing about Ted, right? So everybody attacks him, as you do.
Ted Cruz sees his job as basically being a guy who records a podcast, goes on Fox News, and tweets snarky jokes. And increasingly, that's what being a conservative politician is. It's a form of performative trolling. And what is he supposed to do about a frozen pipeline anyway? Senators have constituent services. They have deep networks of powerful people. They can liaison between different levels of government. They can marshal resources. They can highlight problems to federal officials. There are a million things a senator can do in the middle of disaster.
Yeah, there is. Do you think he didn't do any of those? So Chris Hayes from MSNBC. So that's what he was supposed to be doing. And those are the things. He goes on podcasts and Fox News, and you don't have people 24/7 from the left, like the shifts of the world, who are on your channel all the time, to the point where I'm like, man, maybe they should just hire them. Of course. That's all politics is. It's become performance art. And then people react and they freak out and they say things and compare stuff. Pablo Escobar is trending because people are comparing him to Pablo Escobar in the way he looked because of his hair. And, it's kind of funny when you look at that. The problem is then people start saying things like, all the stuff that Pablo did that was good compared to what Ted Cruz. I'm like, do you guys realize what an awful human being Pablo Escobar was? Does anybody realize? He burned $2 million when his daughter was cold. He made $420 million a week at the height of what he was doing. He lost $10 million a month to rats. They would eat the money. He only burned $2 million? It's just that kind of insanity. Pablo Escobar was awful. He was so awful. He brought down an airplane because he thought there was a snitch on there. That's how bad he was. I think at one time, there was like 15 or 16 people running for president of Colombia. I think he assassinated like 10 or 12 of them. Could you imagine that? Yeah. But Ted Cruz is mean. He tweets and he says stuff. And he could be there. Could. Just get over yourself. It's time to move on. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us. Text the program. Guys, this is the year where we turn the page. This is supposed to be the year where we've moved on. We're moving on to other things. But the reality is we're stuck in the same situation as we were last year. We're battling over and over the same crap as we did last year. That includes, in many cases, battling over and over again all of the craziness when it comes to COVID. And so we sit around and and then we have something that's continuing. It's the Karens. There's Karens everywhere. It's a Karen, Chad. You know what a Karen is. They go, they scream, they yell. They flip out. They say things that are insane. They ask to see a manager. Oh, you know what a Karen is. Well, they've got a support group now. You can join it.
What's in a name? Well, people named Karen have been getting a lot of attention in recent months, especially the ones looking to talk to the manager.
We were at a place recently and I said, could I please speak to your manager? My son was like, oh, Mom, are you being a Karen?
There's not necessarily one single authoritative origin story for the Karen meme, but it is essentially a shorthand way of describing a certain type of perhaps white woman who perhaps uses her privilege to make life difficult for other people.
It's always about privilege and whiteness. But Karens are very real. We all know that. Karens are very real. So, but not all Karens are bad. Sometimes people just have a name named Karen. What about that? Have you seen that commercial? Was it M&M's? She goes, I'm sorry I called you a Karen. The lady's like, my name is Karen. She goes, I'm also sorry for that. Because they're everywhere. But we know them. We know who those Karens are. We understand that. I want people to understand. Get in a group if you need to support. I tried to join the group. Apparently, I was not allowed.
Karen quickly became associated with the Amy Cooper story, or the Central Park Karen, and British daily newspaper The Guardian dubbed 2020 the year of the Karen. Now, one Karen Robinson of Grand Rapids is working to shed positive light on the Karens for the community through women empowerment.
It's a common ground. Create that positive social change through actions, words, and outreach. Asking for a manager is not always negative.
But sometimes it is. And usually when a Karen does it. We had a Karen here a couple days ago that was spectacular. She got to the point where she was so frustrated she took off all of her clothes. Karen had a few pops. I'm just letting you guys know that. Karens are everywhere. Ted, maybe Ted Cruz is the male Karen? Oh, Chad, you're right. Maybe he is. Oh, my Lord. Pablo Escobar. You guys are so stupid. You're so stupid. I just don't even get. You know what? I don't. Yeah. Why are you saying they're stupid? Because they're stupid. Because people who go out and compare Ted Cruz to Pablo Escobar, and I'm not talking about they're like, yeah, he kind of looks like him. I'm just talking about in general that all you have to do is post one thing and then somebody will take it a little bit further and further and further and further. And they talk about, well, look at all the good he did for the community. Okay. Okay. That sounds good. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show, Twitter. Tweet, text the program. Love hearing from all of you. The love, the hate, I'm good with it. I always say, if you want to have a conversation, totally open to it. If your first thing out is blank you and die, that's not a conversation. You just want to be angry with somebody, and you thought, well, I'll do it to you. So, always open. to having a chat. Wounded Paw Project, amazing organization. I think we'd all agree. Right, left, in the center, non-political. This is a great organization. They help veterans by getting them a dog to help them through situations after they've come back from war, trying to transition into normal life. They're recovering from the traumas of that. Sometimes it's injuries. Sometimes it's the injuries you can't see, the PTSD, and they struggle. But it's not just any dogs. They're shelter dogs to become service dogs, and they need your help. It takes a while, and it takes a lot of money to train these animals because they're not just rescuing puppies. They're rescuing dogs that will be euthanized, sometimes the worst of the worst dogs, and they're training them. So you can give several ways. Smile.amazon.com. Set your supporting group up. You can give cash, but better yet, a vehicle. If it flies, if it floats, come on. You know you probably have a boat, and you're like, this is the greatest day of my life. And then every day after you bought the boat, you're just like, I got to get rid of this thing. You'll get a great tax-deductible gift. It is awesome. See the work they're doing. Find out how you can give. Go to woundedpawproject.org, woundedpawproject.org, or call 844-678-4PAW, 844-678-4729, or woundedpawproject.org. You'll be saving a paw to save a life. Chad Benson Show.
I usually don't get into politics. As an ordinary suburban housewife, I feel a little disrespected. I teach my children not to name call.
You are a blabbermouth!
Come on, man. Guys, can we please keep the chatter to a minimum?
Chad Benson.
Just a loud...
Luke Combs' recent single is all about coming together.
We gotta find a way across the Great Divide.
And he's apologizing for posing with the Confederate flag earlier in his career. At the annual country radio seminar this week, he was asked about the images from 7 years ago of him with the controversial symbol, and he said that as a younger man, he didn't understand how painful that image could be. And now, he would never want to be associated with something that brings so much hurt to someone else. Yeah. He hopes that by talking about it, people can learn from his mistakes like he has.
You know, it's a conversation. Hey, you know what? That flag over there represents something totally different to me. Okay. And then you have a conversation, and that person may say, well, you know, it represents something totally different to me. And then you have a conversation. Nowadays, it's like, well, I got to go apologize for everything. Everything in the history of the world, I got to apologize for. Everything in the history of all time. And I just, it's we all know it's ridiculous, right? Like it's stupid. Case in point, David Letterman. Now, if you guys don't remember, 2000-something, Letterman interviewed just about everything. I can't even remember when this was. It was Lindsay Lohan. So it's now not just Lindsay Lohan, right? It's now not. Now they're going through line by line of everybody he ever interviewed. Everybody he ever interviewed who was a woman. Hey, let's see if he said anything that was untoward. Fine at the time, but bad.
Aren't you supposed to be in rehab now?
Do you not watch anything that goes on?
I do.
Tabloid now?
Now here's what
May 2nd.
I was under the May 2nd.
Yes.
And how long will you be in rehab?
3 months.
How many times have you been in rehab?
Several.
And how will this time be different? What are they rehabbing, first of all? What is on their list? What are they going to work on when you walk through the door?
We didn't discuss this in the pre-interview.
No.
Now it's cringeworthy. Look, Lindsay lived her world out in the open. She was very open about a lot of her problems. You didn't have to go on the show. Smarter people around her should have said, hey, if you're going to rehab, you don't do this. Dave never shied away. He's going to ask some serious questions. But now, of course, we got to cancel him. Cancel him from what? From life. It's no longer the fact that he just doesn't do anything. He has that weird beard and just doesn't look right on him. It doesn't. And and you got the 1 hour talk show that you do here and there. No, we got to go back, and we're going to retroactively take everything away from you.
Do you have addiction problems?
Now you sound like Dr. Phil.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Is it like alcohol? Do you drink too much?
We've discussed this in the past.
Oh, did we really? When did we discuss?
Well, because
I'm the one who's having the blackouts. I ought to be in rehab, for the love of God. When you go to the rehab, what do they do?
We have to work here for a movie.
We have to what?
Let's stay on the positive.
Oh, what?
Aside from that side of the positive.
Yeah.
And part of the problem too is if Barbara Walters asked for questions, which she did, it's different, right? David is David, and didn't like his politics, but he did a bang up job in a lot of different ways. But it's just so funny that we have to go back now. And look, listening to it's cringeworthy. It's a young lady, but she should never have been on the show. Like everything else, we're mad at somebody who did the job that they would do. You're not going to skip that. Not as you're not. Most people wouldn't. I mean, a few may. But now we have to get rid of him. You brought her to tears. You could hear her start to break up there. Now everything is going to get scrutinized. What else did he say to somebody? Paris Hilton? Jennifer Aniston? Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This would create an 8-year path to citizenship. We're talking about for the 11 million undocumented immigrants that live in this country. People like dreamers who were brought to the country illegally as children, people who qualify for temporary protected status. Those are immigrants who are especially vulnerable coming from places like war zones. They would basically get bumped to the front of the line. They would get green cards immediately if they can pass background checks. And I should say that this basically only applies to folks who have been in the country prior to January 1st, 2021.
I don't know how you prove that. I don't know how you prove it. It's not going to happen. There's already 5 other bills, smaller bills. They're going to have to piecemeal something together. But like everything else, that happens in politics, the issues that are at hand, we're not really dealing with the problem. We're not. We are putting a Band-Aid on it, potentially, a few Band-Aids, but it's still going to rip open and bleed again because we're not dealing with the entire. We need surgery. We need surgery. This needs. We got to figure this out. This isn't going to. We've got to figure it out because it's more about keeping the problem going to raise money, immigration, whatever it is. I mean, you pick it. Like I said yesterday, whether it be choice, whether it be go out and, say, all right, guns, or it's the same playbook over and over. And immigration is no different. Because none of them are really wanting to figure out, okay, how do we actually fix the problem? How do we address the problem? How do we go from point A to point B in a real way where there's a next step to point C, and then we can get to the point where at the end of the alphabet it's C? Instead, it's like, well, let's go from point A to point Z, but we're going to skip all these other steps, and because of that, we're missing a bunch of things, and then we have to start all over again, which is what we were not supposed to do. Now, this bill, and Biden readily admitted, look, this thing's not built for 60 votes. I'm appeasing people, so just bear with me, and they roll it out, and we'll go from there, and then they'll try a bunch of other little things, and at the end of this entire debate that they're going to have, and the executive order here, and the lawsuits and all that stuff, are we going to be any closer to finding a solution? The answer is no.
This one fell swoop giant umbrella of immigration at this point has no chance of passing with Republican support. However, the Democrats could decide that they want to go at this alone. And if they do that, they basically would have to sell immigration in the Senate as a budgetary bill. And if they do that, the likelihood that it gets watered down in a much narrower form is probably what would happen.
So it's not dealing with the problem. That's what it is. It's not dealing with the problem because nobody does. Nobody wants to deal with the problem because if you deal with the problem, you've got to go, okay, I got to be honest with myself. And that is something that people really aren't into. We have to be honest about this. And politicians don't want to be honest about it. They don't want to be honest about the fact that they've allowed this to happen over and over again. They've turned a blind eye at it on numerous occasions, and they really don't care. This is Rep. Linda Sanchez, California.
If we are able to get at the root causes that cause many of these people to flee and come north, we can stem much of the tide of immigration.
Corrupt governments, overbearing governments, governments have turned a blind eye to not only corruption within the government, but also corruption outside of the government, wasting hundreds of millions and billions of dollars from people like us. Drug war that is ineffective. I mean, we can go on and on. You can go on and on and on. How serious are you about fixing this? People aren't. They just want to make sure that they look good. And in doing so, does everybody know that they look good? Like, so I'm looking good. Do you guys see me looking good? I'm trying. Is my base happy? Fantastic. These Republicans are evil. Let's raise some money. Let's shoot out some text messages, right, that they can easily, throw an extra $10 and send it to us so I can help them fight. Let's throw out some emails and things like that. And the Republicans do the same thing. Hey, guys, let's tell them they're going to allow everybody in the world to come here for free, and they're going to take every job that you've ever had, and they're going to do all of these things, and this is what they're going to move them to the front of the line for everything, and you go to the back of the line. Okay, yeah, and then let's raise some money. Fix the problem, but you have to address that there's a problem, and they rarely do that. They rarely do that because nobody, perfect example of the insanity. So Ted Cruz, as we all know, first, he's very hateable. I get it. There's just something about him smarmy. Texas, winter storm, horrible. It's lasted way too long. This is something they're not used to. Once in 100-year kind of storm. Yes, they'll have cold snaps like this, once every few years, but not for this long and not that does this much damage. And then Ted Cruz, what's he do? Gets on a plane, he bounces, goes to Cancun.
So the question from the video on the cell phone was whether the decision to go was tone deaf. Look, it was obviously a mistake, and in hindsight, I wouldn't have done it. I was trying to be a dad, and all of us have made decisions. When you've got two girls who have been cold for two days and haven't had heater power, and they're saying, hey, look, we don't have school. Why don't we go? Let's get out of here. I think there are a lot of parents that'd be like, all right, if I can do this, great. That's what I wanted to do.
So he got blasted, rightly so. The look wasn't good. But what's the real issue here? The real issue here is these things shouldn't have failed like this. If people had heat, if they had a grid that was strong, this would not be an issue other than it's too cold and we're like Buffalo right now. Well, that's a problem that Ted's not going to solve. He can't talk. Hey, Mother Nature. It's Ted Cruz. I know you don't like me, but he can't solve that. He can't solve. The real issue is, why did this fail? When they had been warned before, why did this fail? When they had been told about 10 years ago when they had the Super Bowl there last, I know because I was there, it was freezing for that week. Week before, beautiful. Week after, pretty beautiful. The week of, yeah. But they said, hey, if you guys don't get this sorted out, you guys have any length of time, this is going to be a real big issue. and do it. That's the issue right there. PG&E with the wildfires. They were told 1,000 times. You fix this. They ignored. Then when it happens, it's like, oh, it's climate change. It's this, that. No, the problem was you didn't address it. Some stuff will happen. Because nature, as we always say, will mess you up. And when you play with nature, which we all do because we're out there in it, yeah, some things are going to happen. But the real issue is, why did it fail? Oklahoma's weather is arguably colder. I hear them talking about it. Somebody sent me a text last night. Hey, Chad, I'm here in Oklahoma. It's just a regular day for us. We ain't got nothing going wrong here. It's cold. You're going to have some issues with the power because nature. But not for this long because it was an entire failure. Well, why? That's the problem that we need to solve. Immigration. The failure is, why are they coming here? Because, A, this is the land of opportunity. And even people in other countries who've got opportunities want to come here because they see a bigger picture. But they're coming here because they're desperate. Why are they desperate? Because their countries have failed. And because you are part of the problem by continuing to allow them to come here by turning a blind eye and raising money. You're not interested in a solution. You like the problem because there's a lot of money in it. We're no longer asking, why are we in this position? We're not even trying to solve the position we're in. We're saying to ourselves, well, how can we benefit politically or financially? It's a joke. You wonder why people are pissed. And yeah, the optics were not good. But here's a question. Let's just say it's just really cold in Texas, like it is now. But 90+% of people that lost their power still had their power. Some of the snow, some of the stuff, it was going to cause problems. It does in places like Buffalo and you're still going to have some issues. Because that's just what. But those things are repaired within a day. Nobody's really in a situation where they're taking pictures off the wall and burning them to keep cold. So let's just say it's like that, and Ted Cruz goes down to Cancun. Well, people wouldn't care. They'd be like, well, that's pretty smart. People want a scapegoat, but nobody ever wants to address the issue. Stop getting mad at the donut. If you're overweight, address the issue with you and go from there. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Love hearing from all of you. Raycon, best earbuds around. Love my Raycons. Charged them up last night. Why? Because I know this weekend I'm playing a lot of golf, man. I got lots of golf. I got a lot of golf that I'll be playing. A lot of working out that I'll be playing. You know, I'm going to go, I'm going to hit the weights, probably play a little soccer here and there just to get some cardio, but I'll be doing a lot of walking and working out on the golf course, sometimes 3, 4, or 5 hours at a time. I take my earbuds with me. There's no wires, there's no stems, which matters because when you're swinging a club, the last thing you want is those things getting in your way. It's just awesome. The other night I was in the hotel, had my earbuds on. I was just relaxing. I'm like, I don't want to watch TV. I just want to just chill and listen to an audiobook. I love it. Better sound quality, better design with Raycons, 6 hours of talk time, seamless Bluetooth pairing. But at the end of all of those things I just said is the thing that matters most, and that is the noise isolating fit. You will love them, and there'll be times when you'll even forget they're in there because they're so comfortable. Get yours now and save big. Normally, you'd spend $200-$300 for earbuds anywhere near these. These start well under $100, and I'm going to save you an extra 15%. BuyRaycon.com/Chad saves you 15%. BuyRaycon.com/Chad. BuyRaycon.com/Chad. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
where we reach across the aisle and occasionally poke someone in the eye.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff.
Now it's time to find out what's trending. What's trending? Yeah, what does that mean? I mean something, right? Like it's trending on the old internet. What's trending? You know what I love? Stuff that trends. Let's head over to Twitter, find out what's trending and who's angry at who for no reason whatsoever. Pablo Escobar is trending because there is a resemblance with Ted Cruz's hair and Pablo Escobar. Also a shirt he wore. And, of course, he's getting hammered. So they're apparently comparable. Well, he was a politician. He killed thousands upon thousands of people and held a nation basically in his hand and crushed the soul and spread evil, terror, and drugs throughout the entire globe. But Ted Cruz was going to go to Cabo. Get over yourself, for God's sake. Oh, my goodness me. The new Mortal Kombat looks ridiculous, fun, and awesome. And there's a super bloody trailer. They got a Red Band trailer that's out. If you want to check that out. Jarrah Jones owns the Dallas Cowboys, making some money because he has a lot of natural gas. And he is making some huge money because natural gas obviously is running right now. So enjoy, as they say, the price of that because he's going to soak it all up. No problems with that. I pay way too much. I'll tell you guys here in a little bit what I pay for this is the winter. We're not here in summer right now. So we're really not running anything outside of the lights for the lizards. I paid almost $1,000 last month for my power. So I never really feel sorry for people. Well, what about? Head on over to Google, Ted Cruz. Obviously, he's trending. Carson Wentz was traded for a nothing, like a third and a second round pick to the Colts. It was big news yesterday. Top of that, Prince Marquis died. Founding member of the Fat Boys. Vlad Tenev, GameStop, Mr. Kitty. We're going to talk about this because they were all in front of the Muckety Mucks yesterday in Capitol Hill because they have to get involved. They have to get involved in what took place by people making poor choices and doing stupid things, but also what happened to Robinhood, because there are some serious questions about Robinhood that had nothing to do with them being best pals with hedge funds. It was being undercapitalized, not having enough cash that caused them to have serious issues. But it wasn't just, these people, they got into this and they just didn't know what they were doing. That's once I go back to it's a you problem. If you're going to get in something like that and you're running and jumping on it and you get kicked in the ass, nature is also part of the stock market and investing. And it can mess you up. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Everybody's mad at Ted Cruz.
It is maddening that Texas couldn't handle a few cold days. That is really frustrating, and the fact that the grid didn't operate is completely unacceptable.
Yeah, very true. That's the biggest problem here. Ted Cruz isn't the biggest problem. The biggest problem is the grid didn't work. Right? So that's the big problem in this. We look for somebody to blame, though, and Ted is the perfect villain. If he was an actor, he would be a character actor villain in every Bond movie. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
It just feels as though the benchmark timeline for any sort of return to normalcy keeps getting pushed back further and further.
How long it will take to vaccinate people will really depend upon the efficiency with which you get doses into people's arms. So they'll be available in July. It may take an additional couple of months, actually, maybe towards the end of the summer, to get everybody vaccinated.
Hey, there's a goalpost. Quick, move it over here. Oh, my God. All right, move over here. We moved it again. Well, stop moving it. I feel like Fauci and all of these people, they're a little like Lucy with the football. Seem to pull it back. Too many people are idiots and continue to be Charlie Brown and run at it. Okay. I was watching Rogan and Michael Malice the other day, and they were talking about this. Like, people put so much into the Fauci and so much into these people that are into this to the point where they're hanging on every word. And they're at the point where they're hanging on so many words that they've said, hey, dog urine's the best thing for it. People be Googling what's the best dog urine to drink. That's how people are so absolutely been, I think, in many ways, played. And I know that this is a new virus. And I think when we do the post-mortem of how did we react to this, we're going to find out we overreacted in some ways. Things that we could have done to mitigate it early, we didn't do. And once it became community spread, where it was so out there, that no matter what we did, there was a very good chance we were never going to, outside of just staying in your house by yourself, never going to really get to the point where it wasn't going to affect everybody. It was too out there. And now July. Okay, now it's July. Why is it July? Because of this or because of that. People are frustrated. And what I've been saying, look, we all know everybody's got a breaking point. What's the breaking point for you? That's the question. But if you don't have an end in sight, and this is where government is government, there's never any punishment for government. There may be punishment for individuals, meaning we're going to vote you out, but there's never real punishment if they don't get done on time or there isn't anything really set out there as it's just going to be open-ended. And we all know when something's open-ended, ask a child, hey, get a book report done. When? Whenever. Just try to get it done as fast as possible. Is there a deadline? Not really. Okay. What are you going to do? And that's what I feel like this is. And it's the ever-moving excuse of this, of that. Of it was the last guy, or it was the, this problem over here. The weather is an issue, but it's not a huge issue. If this was going to be a situation where for the next 6 months, all of the Southwest and Northeast were going to be completely frozen in, okay, well, we may have some delays, but we'll figure something out. But it's not going to be that way.
In these areas that are affected by weather, our hearts go out to the pain and suffering that they're experiencing. I'm not so concerned about that, though, in the sense that the biggest challenge we had up into the cold weather was not enough vaccine to begin with. The challenge we have right now is that there's about 22 million Americans who have received their first dose, waiting for their second dose, and there's no second doses as such, except for the new production of vaccine that's coming out, which is about 2 million doses a day. So if we didn't vaccinate anybody with new first doses over the course of the next 10 to 14 days, all we could do is second doses. That's the challenge we have right now.
Osterholm, who works with Biden when it comes to COVID, I think the real question is how real is the new report out from Pfizer, the peer-to-peer reviewed report about the vaccine that says it's about 85, 86% on one dose effective. Wait, what? Oh, yeah, and you don't have to really store it at any super freezing kind of conditions. You could store it normally. Wait, what? And you can even go up to 12 weeks after you were supposed to get the second shot until you get the second shot, and you'll be fine. Huh? Well, why aren't we just giving out all the shots then? Another one of those questions that needs to be answered. Would we rather do it in such a way where we're worried about making sure everybody gets their second shot? Or is it about getting as many people vaccinated, even if it's your first dose, as possible? I think it's about getting as many people vaccinated as possible. Because if you have a large mass of people that have at least the first shot, if not a few of them having the second shot, plus some of the people probably have already had it, there's a very good chance that the spread will be negligible, which means what? Life back to normal. But everybody's concerned about doing it in such an order, and that is failing. That is failing. It's about getting it out there, executing the plan, and having a plan that's real, not a plan that you think is woke or a plan that you think is going to benefit a certain group of people that you feel is underserved. It's about let's just get as many people vaccinated as possible in a timely fashion, in a simple way, and go from there. Because once you get to herd immunity, we're all good.
But if you obviously are following what's happening with these viruses, particularly this UK variant, what we call B117, this very likely in the next 5 to 14 weeks is going to cause a major surge of cases in this country. And our own work has shown that despite the fact that this surge is about to hit us and it's going to be devastating, is that over 30 million Americans over the age of 65 will not have access to vaccine in these next 12 to 14 weeks. That's a real challenge.
Get people the shot. Because if it's going to be as bad as you say it is, then I'd rather have a bunch of people with some form of immunity or way to fight something than a group of people that we're trying to get stuff to that may not even have as much access as you think, but we're going to hold off because we're trying to be equitable. It's just stupid. We're not dealing with it, and nobody wants to ask a real question about this because it'll hurt people's feelings. And as we all know, feelings matter. I got pushback because I thought at first, I think, if you're out there in society and you're bringing stuff to the table on a daily basis and you're putting yourself at risk, being around others and all of those things, that you should be the one. You should be out there getting shots. Even if you're 21 or 37 and healthy or 50 and healthy or 65 and healthy. Because you're the one out there every single day. Oh, Chad, you're evil. You're bad. What about? It's not about that. It's just about at some point you have to say, what is my goal? What's the goal of this situation? Get as many people as possible. As many people as possible vaccinated that will have it and go from there. Not about equity. It's just as many people. I don't care if it's all African Americans, Asian Americans, or white people. I don't care. Just get as many shots as possible into people's arms and start getting people back out to their lives. Because that's going to help in ways that we're not even seeing yet. Not just through the economy, but for the mental health of our country. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show's your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. I love it when you do that. I do. Again, Texas, nightmare, we know that. People are mad at Ted Cruz because, he's Ted Cruz, and he goes, and he's, he's Ted Cruz, and he didn't read the room, kids.
For him to fly to Mexico to get his family warm shows exactly how out of touch he is.
They're all out of touch. And it's weird, too. Like the whole thought when we, founding fathers put this together. Originally, look, they said, there's not a lot of us here that are really, can read and write and do, we're still a little bit ways behind. So our whole goal is to make this for everybody and be a representation of the people, but most of us here are the intelligentsia. We have to realize that for a while. But then eventually it's not going to be a full-time job. We're all going to go back to our regular gigs. And but now it's not like that. They're all professional politicians, and they're all out of touch. They're all out of touch. I don't, people yesterday, I didn't so much defend Ted as I'm like, if I'm in Texas, and I lived in Texas for a while, even, here, it's like, there's not a lot that you're going to be able to do. Well, he can do all kinds. Well, what can he do? He's not magic. We're not asking the real question of why did they fail? Because they didn't winterize when they were supposed to. At all. They had opportunities. Just to let you guys know, as cold as it's been in Texas, it's cold for Texas. It ain't cold for upstate New York. It isn't cold for Michigan. No, it's not. Oklahoma's next door. They're not having the same problems because they didn't take action to do the things they were supposed to do when they had the chance to do it. And you see it every year, whether it's power companies dealing with wildfires or power companies across the country dealing in situations where they've said, hey, look, you're not dealing with the heat the right way. This is going to kill your grid. And then they don't do it. And then people get pissed off. And they're like, why is this happening? And they want somebody to blame. And Ted's easy to blame. He's easy to blame because he's swarmy looking. And he's condescending. And he didn't read the room right. But we still have to ask the question of why did it fail? First and foremost. And know this. Everybody's like, well, the feds aren't involved. Texas is on its own. They're energy independent in more ways than you realize. They don't have the feds over them. They don't have the feds involved. They do their own thing. They set it up a long time ago. The feds can't get to them. It's an island of their own energy. In a lot of ways, this is a huge states issue of why did it fail. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Well, they had the windmills. The windmills, that plays such a small part of what it is they do. And there are windmills in the Antarctic and several other places where it gets cold. This just wasn't set up the right way because they focus more on the heat than they do this. And rightly so, because the heat comes every year. This comes once, maybe a decade for a couple days, and something like this maybe once a century. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet, text, love hearing from all of you. AMAC, Association of Mature American Citizens, fastest growing over 50 organization in the country. We're bringing you benefits like retail, restaurant, hotel discounts, and so much more. On top of that, they've got great things that they do for you that you don't even know about. They're out there fighting for you to do things like protect the First and Second Amendment, make sure that Social Security and Medicare are solvent. So when you're ready to take it, all these benefits and more for less than $20 a year. And the benefits are great. Like I say, it could be as little as, hey, you know what? I need life insurance. They've got great companies they work with that give you huge discounts. Hey, I'm going to go travel to amusement parks when we can open and travel again. They've got huge discounts at amusement parks. Take advantage of this today. Join AMAC, amac.us/chat, amac.us/chat, amac.us/chat. Chad Benson Show.
Hashtag me too. Hashtag immigration reforms. Hashtag help. I'm trapped in a hashtag factory and I can't get out. The Chad Benson Show.
Florida does a lot. Earlier today, we were talking about two ladies who dressed up like grannies that were in like 30s, and they went to Florida and they tried to get shots for that. And you just never know what happens in Florida. Case in point, trash truck and a little boy.
Sometimes kids can say and do the darndest things. One Hillsborough County boy was nearly crushed. It could have been a tragedy after playing in a trash can landed him in the back of a garbage truck.
The little boy ended up getting tossed into the back of a truck. Thankfully, the alert driver jumped into action and saved his life.
It was right there. I was going to be a mashed potato.
He was going to be more than a mashed potato. He was going to be squished. And we grew up, I'm 50, trash guy came, you had maybe a Rubbermaid one and a couple of those metal trash cans. He'd take the lid off and he'd throw it on the ground. He'd throw your trash can in there, shake it out, then throw it back on the ground, and they drive off, and then you have to go out and pick up all your trash cans. But you're like, when you're a kid, you're like, oh, it's the coolest thing ever. Then the electronic one came, right? So they're just driving up, it's got the arm, brings it up. Hey, as a kid, trash trucks are awesome. Well, there it is. Look at that. That thing is just, look at it.
Like most 7-year-olds, Elias Quesada is full of energy and curiosity.
I climbed in.
He decided to hide inside the garbage can outside his Hillsborough County home. Within moments, a garbage truck pulled up, scooping up the trash can and dumping it inside the truck with Elias inside.
I got picked up and thrown.
Driver Waldo Fidel had his eyes on the surveillance camera, something he's trained to do with every single trash can.
I see something drop. I was thinking this might be the end for me.
Yeah. So if you've not seen it, so what happens is arm comes down. They've got a screen inside there. They see what gets dumped in, and then it comes back out, and they move on. They're supposed to be looking each and every single time. I'm pretty sure they look most of the time, but this guy looked at the right time, and that's all that matters.
But the quick-thinking driver jumped into action. He shut off the blade and called 911.
He said, help me. I said, no, okay, you okay now?
You saved his life.
Jesus.
And for that, Elias and his grandmother are grateful.
I said, thank you.
Waldo and Elias say they are now friends for life, and he said to him, tell your friends no more climbing in trash cans or playing in trash cans.
I was going to be a mashed potato.
Yeah. Never had to worry about that because, like I said, when we were kids, the trash guy came and picked up the garbage and dumped it in. That guy riding on the back, right? Like, we all love that. You go outside, you're just looking out the window, and it's the guy's like, oh, man, look, he just gets on and off, and dumps it, throws it out, and they rarely, like every once in a while, like, oh, that guy put the trash cans back. Rarely. It still didn't matter. That was cool. It was just so cool seeing the dude ride on the back of the trash can truck. Now they don't have that. It's just one dude. Neat, 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 neat. Still cool. Robot stuff. Don't get me wrong. But too long for the days of a guy who throws trash can all over the place, including your lids. And if it's windy, they're blowing all over the place. But you watched him ride on the back of that thing, and you were like, oh, my God. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter, your Instagram, Chad Benson Show TV on YouTube. It's the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Excited. I'm pumped. It's going to be a good weekend. Got the whole thing going on up there at Maz, which is great. Just telling the guys, let's go over this again. We're on land. We've been here for a while. We know snow shows up every once in a great while. And we have issues keeping the grid running. We fired off a rover to Mars 7 months ago, traveling at 50,000 miles an hour. All right, so let's 50,000 miles an hour. Traveling 128.49 million miles. That's a lot of miles. And we can't keep the lights on? We knew exactly when it was going to land. Now, Producer Phil, you're a nerd, as we all know. For those of you guys who don't know, follow Producer Phil on the old Facebook. You want to know nerdy stuff like travel times with trains, planes, and stuff like that, and space. What time, how close was it to perfection on the landing as far as the time?
It was dead on.
Dead on. So we flew hundreds of millions of miles through space to land on a hostile planet. And it was dead on time, and we can't figure out a grid system? The reason we were able to do that is because there wasn't any politics in it, really. There's politics in this. And that's the crazy. And we've turned politics into weather. We turned weather into politics, for God's sakes. We turned weather into politics. But it is kind of interesting when you think about what we can do, the precision that we can do it. They said yesterday, 3:55 Eastern Time, 12:55 Pacific, 1:55 Mountain, 2:55 Central. We will land this thing on Mars. And they did. Even with the 7 minutes of terror, they were able to land it. Think about that.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the sands of past life.
Woo! We still can't figure out how to fix a grid. Here's my prediction. This won't be the last time. California's going to have grid problems and rolling blackouts sooner rather than later, especially as it starts to heat up. It's amazing. It is amazing. Because we're not interested in solutions. We're interested in problems, because problems bring in money and give people to opportunity to bitch, whine, and moan and to raise money. Ted Cruz is the one that everybody hates right now because he's easy to hate. He's always been easy to hate. Let's be, I say he's smug, he's smarmy. He walks in the room and he thinks I'm the smartest guy in here by tenfold. And more often than not, that's absolutely true. I think Dershowitz taught him in college at Harvard. He said, look, he guy's a freshman and he's smarter than majority of attorneys I know. And he knew it. And that's part of the problem. The optics were bad. He's traveling to Cancun or wherever he was traveling to. But I was just amazed. I'm sitting here, everybody's like, oh, Tad's horrible. Tad's bad. We're not dealing with problems the way that we should be. We're not trying to find a solution. We're trying to find how to make the present that we're going through, how we can demonize people, find a person to blame, and get mad at said person. And once this gets done with, they may have a few issues that they'll try to deal with. And Texas is totally different. For those of you guys that don't know, Texas is truly energy independent. Everybody else is on the federal grid and all those kind of. Texas is Texas. And we've spoken to several people over the last couple of days. The majority of people are like, it is what it is. It's cold. It sucks. But they're asking questions that politicians are making about Ted Cruz. A lot of people are asking the same question they should be, is why did you guys fail when you knew what potentially could happen? And I go back to, that's the real problem. It's not Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz created an issue for Ted Cruz. But there should never have been an issue if they would have handled things from the beginning. We can land on Mars. Precision, 7 months, hundreds of millions of miles through space. We're going to land at this time, and they touch down. Drops down to 20 degrees. And we're like, we're going to shut everything off. Stuff's breaking. Oh, it's frozen. God. Don't bring me problems. Bring me solutions. You want to get rich? Find out where the problems are and find out the solution to said problems, and you will become rich. Bitch about said problem rather than trying to fix it and address it, and you'll be exactly where you are. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show's your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. I don't know if you guys heard, but life expectancy's dropping because of the coronavirus. That's the reality of it.
Right now, COVID-19 is the leading cause of death in the United States. It's sad and it's tragic. And actually, when you look at the decrease in the life expectancy, it's absolutely real and it's directly related to COVID-19. And the differential among people of color versus white again underscores the health disparities. So all of that is intertwined, unfortunately, with COVID-19.
So what do? We get as many people vaccinated as fast as possible. Okay. As many people as fast as possible. Right now, there's a little delay. It's pretty simple. We got issues going on with the weather. I think everybody realized that.
This morning, the winter weather creating vaccine chaos, slowing shipments and delaying tens of thousands of vaccinations across at least 42 states. In New York, 2 mass vaccination sites set to open this week delayed because of shortages. In Los Angeles, 12,000 vaccine appointments canceled because there's not enough supply. Some researchers now claim 1 dose of the Pfizer vaccine is already highly protective. They're urging authorities to delay giving second doses until all priority groups are vaccinated first.
Absolutely right there. Number one thing. Pfizer. So they're studying this thing as they should be. And there's always ongoing studies going on. And according to what's just been released in Lancet, and this is a peer-reviewed study, and it comes not just from who was it? Like, was it Pfizer doing? No. This is peer-reviewed now. They're looking across. So you've got the Sheba Medical Center who studied this and went through it. And what they're saying, and by the way, the UK government is been looking into this as well. You get the shot, and you're supposed to go back within 21 days, right? So 21 days or so, give or take a few days either side, I guess, and you get the second dose. They're saying, no. Look, after about 15 days or so, you've built up a really good amount of immunity, up to 85%. Well, Johnson & Johnson's only, 66, 68%, something like that? Some variants it's a little less, some variants a little bit high, but let's just say right around 70%. Yeah. Oh, and the other thing is what they're saying inside of this is you can put it in an ordinary freezer. The data has also been released by BioNTech and Pfizer's. They've been looking into it as well, that over this period of time. Doesn't mean you don't get a second one, but they say you can delay the second dose by up to 12 weeks. That's great. That's a wonderful thing. Because now you can give many, many shots. Instead of trying to, I would rather give everybody the opportunity to get a shot. So you got 100 shots. Well, we've given out 50. Okay, well, these 50 over here don't have it. I know, but we're not going to get any more, so we're gonna have to only do this many. Well, why don't we give them all out? So everybody has some form of way to fight this thing. And if it comes in the room, it's really going to have nowhere to go. And the people that are in there, even if they do get it, a few of them, they're going to be able to fight this thing off really easily. As opposed to saying, well, these 50 are protected, but 80 of these people got really sick and 2 of them died. Oh, that's not good. No. Isn't that what the thing is? Or is it about equity? Because that, to me, looks like the end goal is, the result is, well, get as many people as protected somewhat as possible. Yeah. Sounds like that should be the plan. It won't be, because we're not interested in the actual solution. For a lot of people, it's all about the politics of it. With, once again, we turn everything into politics, which doesn't equal progress. Letting you guys know. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us. text said program. Ooh, Raycons. Love my Raycons. What's great about them is I love the fact that I can do any kind of sport. Like, if I want to go play soccer today, which I enjoy doing, people say it's really funny because the weather's gotten, it's kind of nice here. And normally I go play in the summer, and they say, why is that? I said, well, the ground kind of freezes here. In the summer, they water everything, so it's softer. It's kind of weird. But I go out and I play. And I'll play. Never worry about them falling out. I've had other earbuds with the stems. I've had ones with the wires that are like wireless, like Bluetooth, but they're still, and they fall out all the time. I'm always fidgeting. Never with these. And the sound quality with these is incredible. So amazing because of the fit. I played the other night, went out, I was working out, and I'd like 3-4 days in a row, I'd played golf, done all kinds of things. They finally ran out of steam about 30 minutes before I was ready to leave. They were in my ears, and it's like power off. And I'm like, oh, I never even thought to take them out because it was such a comfortable fit. I didn't even think about it. That's why these things are amazing. Don't settle for anything better than the best. Raycons are the best. They come with a 45-day money-back guarantee. Try it for yourself. Well under $100. BuyRaycon.com/Chad. BuyRaycon.com/Chad. Try it now. Well under $100. 15% off. BuyRaycon.com/Chad. Chad Benson Show.
I can't take it anymore!
Well, get over it. It's time to forge a new path with your very own political cartographer, Chad.
Always been eating the sardine, for the past couple of days. No hot food.
Ugh, it's gross. Sardines are gross. If that was my if it was death or sardines, if it's you're going to be really hungry for 4 days, I'm like, I'll be really hungry. I could afford it. I could absolutely afford it. It's a new kind of diet. It's a frozen diet. Oh, Chad. Speaking of diets, kids, I like to get you guys hooked up with new things. There's a new diet out there for you. Are you ready for the new diet? We're always trying to help and improve. Now, this diet is different. It's not sardines. It's more Gerber.
If you're trying to get back on track with good health habits, you may want to consider eating like a baby. And no, it doesn't involve baby food.
Well, the premise of the baby diet is let's take cues from the toddler and follow some rules that we really devote a lot of time to with our babies and apply them to yourself.
So, paste? Anything I see on the ground? What's that? It's a penny. Should probably put it in my mouth and eat it.
Registered dietitian Nicolette Pace says, watch for the calories you drink.
No sugary drinks. Basically, sugary drinks, every doctor advises not to give your toddler or your baby sugary drinks. So why are we drinking them? Maybe taking a look at some of these exotic coffee drinks. Literally, you could be looking at 2.5 meals by the time you're done with some of these drinks.
That's true. Those are empty calories. You don't even think about it, right? Like those are total empty. Oh, man. And I remember when I went off soda, I dropped 15 pounds out of nowhere. It was just crazy. I just gave up drinking and stuff like that. I was like, I'm not going to do it. And I didn't. I haven't had a Coke in like probably 6 years. Once in a while I'll have a Sprite or like a Diet Sprite, but I went completely off. Like I have not had a Coke or a Pepsi, and I was totally addicted to that and just drink way too much and didn't do anything, didn't change. And I dropped like 15, 20 pounds like that.
And consider your portions.
But some of these tools that you use for your toddler to feed them, you use them for yourself. I mean, even the section plates. I mean, it's all little compartments.
Stick to an eating schedule.
You have a strict mealtime schedule for them, so let's try following it for ourselves. And this is also to prevent this irregular eating, which generally leads to an increased level of hunger, and then you end up overeating.
If you're a parent of a toddler, consider sharing meal times.
And eating together, even if it's a different texture food or whatever, it'll foster a bonding.
Portion control is huge. I mean, that's the biggest thing of all. It's, yeah, maybe our choices aren't great, but it's the amount of food in our choices. Like, there is just, okay, burger's fine, but I don't need 1,200 fries. And it's like, and I don't need a quadruple burger. I can just have a little burger. And that's a big thing. So much of it is portion control. Saying, all right, here's a plate that's this big. I'm just going to eat this. That thing is, I think out of all of that, is the biggest. Totally. What if you're breastfeeding? Well, we'll deal with that a little bit later. Different kind of thing, Chad. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show's your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Do love hearing from all y'all. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
I don't like this being used as a distraction from the real issues, which is, why was our electrical grid unprepared for this?
End of all the chaos with Ted Cruz and the politics and lunacy that goes around this. That's the number one question. Why were you unprepared? Why were you unprepared? Why? For this. Now, every state is going to go through something because there's going to be times when nature, as we say, will mess you up. There's going to be situations where nature comes hard, and no matter how much you're prepared, there may be still some issues. But Texas just wasn't like, we thought we had everything in place. It was moments away from an entire collapse of their system. Why? Winterizing is part of it, but you keep everything in-house. You guys aren't on any kind of federal side of energy. They're energy independent. As they say, they're on their own island. But that's the question that needs to be really asked. Nobody would have had a problem with Ted Cruz if he would have went away to Cancun, even though it was really cold, if everything was hunky-dory. And that 99% of the people continue to have electricity. You're going to always have some issues here and there. But those issues would have been minimal. I think it's a fair question because we're always looking for somebody to blame. And Ted's easy to do it, too, as they hammer. And everybody, of course, wants him to resign because, that's truly what it's always about. Like, you need to resign, dude, because it's your fault because, you're Jack Frost.
Ted Cruz is an embarrassment to the United States of America. He's an embarrassment to the state of Texas. He's an embarrassment to Houston, and he needs to resign now.
What's the embarrassment? Well, he went down there and he lied. He went down to Cancun or whatever and he lied. Tried to make it about his kids and all this. But still, what's the embarrassment side of it? Why is he an embarrassment to the United States of America? I always thought, that's not an exact. You're an embarrassment to the United States. You're an embarrassment to humanity. Shut up. And I'm not even a fan of Ted Cruz, but geez, my God. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show's your Twitter. Tweet at us. Text the program. Loving this. First and foremost, as all of the chaos continues to fly around, I'm pumped about the fact that we're getting closer and closer to getting ourselves back out there in a real way. And I think we're also coming to the fact that we need to accept that the coronavirus isn't going to go away anytime soon. It's endemic, not pandemic, and that we're going to have to learn how to deal with it. And now that we know what we're up against, in a lot of ways, that's great.
By April, hopefully we'll be close to that, 100, 150 million dose range. So if you add those numbers up, it's possible that we may be able to drive down the virus to the point where if a person is infected, they will not be able to transmit it to another person.
And that's big. And Pfizer today got, well, really what was amazing is what they released is new information as they've been peer reviewed about their actual vaccine that says, hey, you know what? One shot may be good enough for now because it may offer you up to 85% protection. And that's what everybody is excited about with Johnson & Johnson. Plus, you have to store it in anything crazy.
This is good news. So now the Pfizer vaccine can be stored in these pharmaceutical-grade freezers like Moderna, not like our home freezers, which are 0, but at temperatures of like minus 13 Fahrenheit to minus 5 Fahrenheit.
And that's the victory in a situation like that. That's a huge victory. That's why Johnson & Johnson was going to be big. While their numbers weren't 99% effective from preventing you from getting the virus, they were like right around 70, between like 66 and about 70% when you factor in less for this variant, more for this variant. It was only one shot, and you could go to your doctors, or you could go to your local pharmacy and get a shot, and that was going to be a game changer because when enough people have the vaccine, even if you aren't 100%, even if you caught it, the effects would be negligible. So and the chances of you spreading it all over the place isn't going to be there either. So that's a super victory. That is a win. But there's the other side of this. And it's the side that everybody still wants to know about. And this is, to me, one of those things. When we talk about dealing with problems, this is the problem we need to deal with. And this is going to be a time thing more than anything else.
How long will that herd immunity last? And that's where the variants come in and next generation vaccines. So remember, there is that cycle.
We don't know how long they'll last. We don't know how long after you had them they last. They say, well, after about 8 months or so, it looks like people don't have, or at least test positive for the antibodies. But it doesn't mean that you don't, because some doctors and studies say, well, you may still have the antibodies. They're not building up and ready to roll, and if you were exposed, they may fight back. So those are all the mysteries that are out there. So it'll be very interesting to see. All right, we're going to take we're doing something a little different today. Kind of pumped. I'm very excited about this because I find this stuff to be extremely interesting, and it's weird that I do, but a lot of people do. A lot of people do. Talk about serial killers and for lack of a better term, the golden age of serial killers, and why there may never really be serial killers ever again, at least in Western modern society as we know it. I love my dog Doodle. Doodle loves living, and that's why we give him Rough Greens. His life's changed a year ago. He had arthritis, fatty tumors in his hips. He was a hot mess. We didn't know what we were going to do. We thought about putting him down. We've tried everything, all kinds of organic food, this food, that food. We tried all kinds. It didn't work. So we gave him Rough Greens just as kind of a Hail Mary. Changed everything. Rough Greens isn't dog food. It's supplements. Goes on top of your dog's food. Brings your dog's food to life. Vitamins, minerals, probiotics, omega-3, 6, 9, digestive enzymes. Changed everything. He's happier. He's healthier. Vibrant. Better mobility and joint health. It is amazing. You can try Rough Greens right now before you can buy it. Cover the cost of shipping, $8.95, and guess what? Free bag for you comes out. RUFFgreens.com/Chad. Try it before you can buy it, or call 833-MyDog77. That's 833-MyDog77, or roughgreens.com/Chad. Rough Greens, we make any pet food better. Oh, this is going to be fun. Chad Benson Show.
Don't let the Washington Beltway strangle you. This is where the exhausted majority comes to refuel, realign, and reevaluate. This is Chad Benson.
Joining us now is somebody who's got a new book out. It's called American Serial Killers, The Epidemic Years, 1950 to 2000. The author, Peter VRONSKY, joins us. And it is so interesting the way, first of all, you kind of talk about pre all of this, from the Stone Age up until like the 40s, and you break down some of the serial killers and what people thought they were, Peter, like werewolves and vampires. We've always had a fascination with this, and we're always trying to figure stuff out.
Yes, indeed. There's something about the dark side of ourselves that troubles us and draws us. And, I think one of the greatest true crime books are the scriptures, the Bible. I mean, there's so many crimes and their punishments described in the scriptures. And so for thousands of years, we have been obsessed with evil, with our relationship to evil, and its threat and its hold on us. And I think true crime today is, the next manifestation of that obsession that human beings have with it.
Yeah, we can look at the serial killers of the past, but even going back to what took place in Vegas a few years ago, we inherently, as human beings, Peter, we want to figure out what happened so we can almost rule ourselves out of ever doing that.
Yeah, in a way it is. It's like us checking our own pulses when we look at these guys. And it's getting difficult because certainly from the 1970s onwards, when you had figures like Ted Bundy, for example, who wasn't an outsider. This was a relatively attractive male. He had the same kind of middle-class ambitions that we all have for our children, a university education, a upper-middle-class job. He enrolled in law school. He was this individual who many people wanted to have over for dinner, or women wanted to date him. And yet he was this necrophilic monster at the same time, unknown to all of us. It's almost supernatural, except he is one of us. He is a neighbor, somebody we might be in the same classroom with. And that changed us in many ways, because prior to that, the serial killers were kind of these twitchy outsiders, like Ed Gein in Wisconsin. There were these lonely kind of derelict individuals. But starting from the 70s, they begin to take on all sorts of forms of people who we kind of might in some way identify ourselves with. And so Ted Bundy certainly is the first one. Talking
to Peter VRONSKY, his new book's called American Serial Killers, The Epidemic Years between 1950 and 2000. From 1970 to into the 1990s, though, that was, for many people, those were the big years when you go and look at the numbers and you break it down for serial killers that operated here in the United States.
Yeah, 87% of known 20th century American serial killers. They all appeared in just those 3 decades, 1970 to 1999.
Peter, how many people do you think operate right now? How many serial killers are operating at this moment?
The conservative estimate is around maybe 20 to 30. There's definitely a decline in apprehensions. And the question, of course, is have we become better at catching serial killers, or have they become better at doing what they do? Since 1985, there's been nearly a dramatic 50% drop. And, serial murder has accompanied that drop again. Partly has to do, of course, with DNA, the ability to identify people through DNA, and DNA technology is continually being improved. The other thing is, of course, is everybody carries a cell phone now. And in a serial homicide investigation, what you're trying to do, of course, is link to a single perpetrator a number of victims. And, the ubiquity of cell phones carried sometimes by the perpetrator, but almost inevitably by the victim, that makes it easier as well. And so we're finding that when we do catch serial killers, the number of victims are much lower than they had been previously. So we're catching them when we catch them earlier in their quote, careers. And certainly DNA is, we're finding a lot of serial killers still from the epidemic years that the DNA has been catching up with, like the Golden State Killer or recently Samuel Little, who confessed to approximately 80 murders. These guys, of course, are being kind of floated up from that era, as are all these TV shows on Netflix. Mindhunters is about the 1970s. Richard Ramirez was in the 1980s. We're retelling almost like bedtime stories, bedtime horror stories.
Talking to Peter VRONSKY, American Serial Killers, the Epidemic Years, 1950 to 2000. Of course, we all know the big names, right? We know Ted Bundy and Gacy, Berkowitz, obviously, Richard Ramirez. But you talked about, Samuel Little, who is arguably, as far as Americans go, the most prolific of them all that really nobody talks about.
I mean, there's something dull about him, as opposed to Richard Ramirez or Jeffrey Dahmer and so forth. And partly, I think, is we've heard it before. The Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway, kind of was, prior to Samuel Little, was the most prolific with 49 convictions. And so along comes Samuel Little, and aside from the fact that he's African-American, he basically is Gary Ridgway, this kind of almost colorless serial killer. He's no Ted Bundy. He's no Richard Ramirez flashing pentagrams or, Jeffrey Dahmer with body parts in his fridge. Kind of a pantheon of serial killers who are more, quote, popular or more newsworthy. But between 1950 and 2000, we had 2,331 serial killers that have been cataloged. That's a hell of a lot of serial killers whose names, most of them are, we don't know. And just the nature, I think, again, of serial killing, because it's a kind of a choice that these individuals make. They're not insane. They know what they're doing. They know it's wrong. They just don't care. And I think they fascinate us as monsters that live among us.
Yeah, absolutely. Any of them scare you? Would you like Ed Kemper was creepy, but for me, Ramirez, I grew up there in Southern California while he was doing what he was doing. I did live too far from, and we had a house that kind of fit the description. And as an adult, and I don't know if I've gotten to it yet, Richard Kuglinski, who was the Iceman, who was a hitman more than a serial killer, but he terrified me when I watched the Iceman tapes. I'm like, that's the scariest person I've ever seen.
Well, certainly Ramirez, because of kind of the randomness of his victims. I mean, he killed children, he killed senior citizens, he killed males, he killed females, and he came into your home. I mean, that's the ultimate monster that comes through your window or through your door. And, kind of the way Danny Rowling in Florida, who targeted university college students in their apartments. He came in through the door. He terrified that part of Florida pretty much the way Ramirez did, the communities in California. So certainly Ramirez, because of, who he targeted, because serial killers often target vulnerable individuals, where street sex workers, homeless people, drug addicts. So often, the rest of us who kind of lead a conventional life sometimes feel that, we're not at risk being a serial killer's victim. And Richard Ramirez, of course, changed all that, because anybody could be at risk. Sitting in your home, watching the game on television, you could be a victim of Richard Ramirez. So that was unusual, and it certainly heightened people's sense of fear.
Absolutely. Great book, interesting, and in a day and age where I think we are fascinated by other things. We look back and think about some of these people that were, like you said, living among us, which is the most terrifying thing of all, that inspired the likes of Michael Myers, Jason, and every psycho and everything in between. Peter VRONSKY, American Serial Killers, the Epidemic Years, 1950 to 2000. Thank you so very much. We appreciate your time today.
Thanks so much for having me on.
At Chad Benson Show, Twitter, ChadBenson. Stuff of nightmares. Interesting stuff of nightmares. Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show.